Get ready. 3, 2, 1, start. Sir, I beg to move that the bill to provide for voluntary disclosure of income and wealth and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto as passed by the Lok Sabha be taken into consideration. The President promulgated voluntary disclosure of income and wealth ordinance for providing an opportunity to persons who had evaded tax in the past to declare their undisclosed income and wealth, pay tax there on the basis provided in the ordinance, and return to the path of civic responsibility in future. After the scheme of voluntary disclosure had been in operation for some time, it was felt that persons having undisclosed income or wealth in the form of gold and articles or ornaments made of gold would be reticent to disclose their concealed income or wealth for fear of panel action under the provisions of the Gold Bracket Control Act and the Customs Act, with a view to resolving this and certain other difficulties which may have inhibited persons from making voluntary disclosures. The President promulgated the Voluntary Disclosure of Income and Wealth Bracket Amendment Ordinance to make certain modifications in the scheme contained in the ordinance. This bill seeks to replace the voluntary disclosure of income and wealth ordinance before outlining the main features of the scheme of voluntary disclosure. I propose to briefly indicate the background in which the government decided to introduce this scheme. As the honorable members are aware, the drive against economic offenders had been stepped up in recent months. The Income Tax Department had taken vigorous action against tax evaders by increasing the tempo of searches and intensifying survey operations through special survey squads. The Taxation Law Bracket Amendment Act recently passed by Parliament made the punishment for tax offences more stringent. The declaration of emergency concluded with increased pressure on tax evaders. The government took note of the all round awareness of the risk of tax evasion created by these factors and decided to introduce the scheme of voluntary disclosure with a view to providing one last chance to erring taxpayers to come to the path of honesty and civic responsibility. The scheme provided for three types of declarations, namely voluntary declaration of concealed income, declaration of income in cases of search and seizure, and voluntary declaration of concealed wealth. The voluntarily disclosed income in the first category is treated as a separate block and charged to tax at special rates. The declaration will be immune from any assessment or reassessment in respect of the voluntary disclosed income. He will also not be liable to any penalty or prosecution in relation to such income. Besides, the declarant has been exempted from wealth tax up to and including the assessment year 1991-92 in respect of assets represented by the income disclosed under the said scheme. The scheme has a restricted operation in the case of persons whose books of account, other documents, money, bullion, jewelry, etc. have been seized as a result of search by the Income Tax Department. Such persons are not entitled to the benefit of the special rates of income tax in respect of the income for the year in which the search is made or any earlier year. They could, however, make a disclosure in respect of the income for these years and pay tax thereon at the normal rates of income tax applicable to the total income or the relevant years. The income so declared will not be taken into account for the purposes of levying any penalty or charging interest under the Income Tax Act or for the purposes of prosecution under that Act. The assets represented by the concealed income in such cases will be chargeable to wealth tax in the relevant years, but the value of these assets will not be taken into account for purposes of imposition of penalty on prosecution under the Wealth Tax Act. Para. The scheme also provides in the declaration of undisclosed wealth the declarant is required to pay wealth tax in respect of the net wealth or, as the case may be, the value of assets disclosed in the declaration at the normal rates applicable to his net wealth for the relevant assessment year. In addition, the declarant will be equipped to invest 2.5% of the disclosed wealth in notified government securities. The net wealth, or as the case may be, the value of assets so declared will not be taken into account for the purposes of any penalty or prosecution under the Wealth Tax Act. Immunity from confiscation, penalty, and prosecution under the Gold Control Act and the Customs Act has been provided in the case of persons who declare their concealed income or wealth held in the form of gold or articles and ornaments made of gold, where the concealed income or wealth is held in the form of primary gold. The gold will have to be either sold to a licensed dealer or converted into ornaments. The licensed dealer will be required to make necessary entries in the account books. Stop.